Welcome, and thank you for joining us. In the spring of 2021, during the COVID-19 pandemic, 7 York Indigenous students and alumni engaged in conversation to share stories about their successful strategies for finding and developing their own community for success. We are 3 Master of Education students in the Urban Indigenous Education cohort. We have created 3 short videos via recorded Zoom conversations for the York U Prep series in order to share these experiences to help you successfully transition and thrive at university. In this initial video from the Indigenous Perspective series, we will learn more about their expectations of university life, as well as hear about their worries and concerns. Let's meet them now.
Kwe Pajausi Telusi Emma. Hello, I'm Emma. I am a recent graduate of York University's Indigenous Studies program, and in the fall I will be returning to York to continue with my master's in the Department of History. I am Mi'kmaq from Lennox Island First Nation, which is in northern Prince Edward Island. I did the first 2 years of my undergraduate degree at 2 different universities before transferring to York in my 3rd year.
I transferred out of my Bachelor of Science to enroll in the Waban Indigenous Teacher Education Program in 2019, May 2019.
Joni Dishnakaz, Shikanto Dem, Wikwem Kong Dunjba, Toronto Donji. I am a 3rd year York University student in liberal arts, taking culture and expression, but I have a high interest in communications. So a lot of my courses are geared towards communications, and it's my hopes that I have a nice blend between communications and culture. So one day I'd be able to promote our Indigenous culture through all the skills and everything I learned in communications courses.
Tanse, Wache, Anin, Sego, Kwe, Jenny, Nitsugasun, Kihuan Nation Nochi. My name is Jenny Blackbird, and my father's family is from Kihuan Cree Nation in Alberta. My mother is from Finland, and I grew up here in Toronto in the Dish with One Spoon territory. Treaty 13. And I am a master's student at York University for the Master of Urban Indigenous Education with Dr. Susan Dion.
Hi, I'm Kayla Francis. I am in the Waban program at York University. I am Mi'kmaq from Nova Scotia Gluskap First Nation.
I'm Daniel Jackji. I'm from Six Nations Reserve. I'm Mohawk. I'm part of the Waban program at York University.
Ani, my name is Susan Ball. I am at York University in 4th year of Visual Arts and Indigenous Studies. My people come from Treaty 3 Rainy River, and I am a Kokum. I have twin granddaughters, they're 4, and 3 beautiful daughters.
What I expected in for university prior to arriving on campus is that I would build a community with my peers and having like cool little study groups and things. But it just, as time went on, having a part-time job with school, you really had to balance out your schedule and you really had to focus on what you needed to do. Personally, I had a lot of connections with the community, the Indigenous community here in Toronto. So I still had that connection in terms of working and volunteering and attending different drum socials and stuff. So those were my social outlets in between studies, and also where I volunteered to gain some experience based on the studies that I have.
Before arriving to campus, I expected university to be somewhat similar to education experiences that I had in the past, but with a little bit higher pressure. But when I got there, it was a little bit more isolating than normal, since it was difficult to find people that were either in the same program as you, especially in your first year, and that I also somewhat struggled to find people on campus since it's so big. So you kind of have to find other I found like a small group of people, and from there I sort of grew my circle a little bit, but I still did in my first year before coming to York. I found it hard to find people that were in my program.
So I had a pretty good expectation of what I would be getting myself into on the first day. I was familiar with York's campus and I kind of knew some of the like major buildings. What I wasn't really sure about though was the course structure and how my day would actually look. So I was kind of familiar with the campus itself. However, the actual structure of courses in the program was very different from what I expected from high school.
I was a little bit nervous. I felt like, I'm a mom of 2 children. I'm a little bit older. So I was kind of worried about how I was going to fit in, because being around people, that's kind of what motivates me and inspires me. So if I wasn't going to be able to fit in with everybody, I was a little bit worried how I was going to make those connections and do good in schoolwork and stuff. It turns out that the Waban program has so many different people from different backgrounds, and even though we are all different, connecting through the Waban program it was so easy.
I believe my first reaction may have been being a little bit overwhelmed, but then I find the more weeks that went by, the easier it got. But I find my doubts came from also not knowing anyone and thinking I wouldn't fit in. But then within this WABAN program, I realized that there's a lot of people out there like me, and it's kind of eye-opening. So it changed a lot.
My first reaction to starting school and being on campus for the first time was just how massive the school was, and trying to not only navigate my own life, but way around campus, and figuring out how I could be the most successful that I needed to be to get my goals done. So not only figuring out what I need to do academically, but how I could make sure that my mental health and everything else was in check too.
Some of my first reactions is, am I gonna do this being away from family? Right? I went there on my own, and just knowing that, when I go home, I'm not gonna have my family there with me. And, it was just something that you have to, it's like reality hits that you're there and you gotta do it on your own. And just trying to keep focused that you're there for you. And that, no matter what, family's going to be there at the end when you're finished school, and just staying connected with them. That was one of my thoughts is being away from family. But just a simple little text message to say, hey, I'm in class worked, or just saying like class went really well. So I stayed connected with family on little messagings on my cellular, but it was a little anxious at first, but you eventually get used to it. And like I said, a little communication with your family still is it keeps you going.
I think I did worry mostly about juggling a full-time job and then other responsibilities that I have, volunteer positions, and then doing homework and spending time with my husband, and also spending time with myself, also doing the things that I like to do, and art and chores and things. So I think those were the main things that I thought about.
I had a few concerns when beginning York, because I'm very mature, and I was concerned with not keeping up with technology. And also, it had been quite some time since I'd done any academic studies, and I was not sure that I still had the stuff to do that.
When I was thinking about coming to York, some of my worries and concerns was that I was going to be too old, honestly, because I know when I went to York, I started there, I was 30 years old, and I knew everyone was coming from high school, and I felt like I wasn't going to fit in with the younger crowd. But at the end of the day, everyone was there for their own self, right? Everyone had goals and things to focus on. And I was busy in my own schedule outside of school with part-time jobs to even worry about, you know, people, I guess, liking me. I don't know if that was if that's right to say, but I thought age was a huge thing. But coming to think about it, it was actually a good thing because I, came with experience of like note taking and bringing less stuff to carry and knowing to bring your charger or for your laptops. And I learned kind of things on my first year. And yeah, it was a learning experience. And then I just felt like that things I had to share in terms of my Indigenous culture within some of the courses, people really respected my opinions or my things I have to share of lived experiences. And that worry of age just kind of dissipated, because then now you're realizing you're a role model. People look up to you to ask things. So it ended up working out okay.
When coming to New York, I feel like my anxiety might have been my biggest concern. I don't think I truly believed myself before I got here because of, if I'm being honest, because of what some teachers told me in the past. But then throughout my time at Fanshawe and my experience out west, I kind of realized that I'm smarter than I believed myself to be. So ever since I've come here, I've been surrounded by like my professors and my peers, and I just can't believe how supportive they are, and it's been making it a lot easier.
Some of the other challenges that I encountered when coming to school was figuring out exactly how to navigate a heavily academic space, especially one that's dominated by non-Indigenous people, and figuring out how my own thoughts and community's methodology would sink into whatever I was studying, even if it wasn't within the Indigenous studies field, or if it was Canadian studies, and figuring out how those two can go together, or if they even were able to go together. And I found that really difficult.
So when I first arrived to York University, my biggest challenge for me was fitting in with the rest of my classmates, because I am very people oriented. And it's really, it's kind of my driving force is working with other people and getting to know people and building those relationships. So I was worried that because I'm older or a mom, that I wasn't going to be able to relate to people. But quickly, like in at least the first week, I realized that it's so easy to fit in because we're all on the same page. Even with the professors have a lot of life experience. They have a lot of education, a lot of experience within the education system, and a lot of Indigenous knowledge. So the first week it was like, I don't even know why I was worried about it, because it came so naturally. Everybody has the same fears that you do. Pretty much my whole class felt the same way that I was feeling.
It was a challenging time in what would have been my second and third year. My third year doesn't really count because I ended up enrolling part-time and completing one course in my entire third year. And then in my fourth year, I transferred out of my Bachelor of Science program completely, and I entered the Waban Indigenous Teacher Education program, and that's kind of the turning point for my academic journey.
I think the biggest challenges were navigating the website, trying to find all the places I needed to go to register or to read up what I needed for the courses, to sign up for the courses, ticking all the right boxes, making sure that everything was taken care of. And then when I went to get my ID card, that was another issue of trying to find the right location and finding the block and then the office. And so I think those were the only things I really had a lot of trouble navigating through.
learning more about your grades and kind of getting that reality of like whether if you were successful or not it creates a lot of anxiety. So it took me a while to connect with those student advisors, and what I felt was really useful is connecting through email, because there was not that in-person interpersonal, like those feelings that you get when you meet in person. The option to meet and discuss through email, I felt was less anxiety on me, at least for the first meeting. And then my second meeting, I was like, okay, I gotta tough this out, let's just do it in person, because school and work schedules, I had to do it in person for the next one. So yeah, it just took a while, and getting over these anxieties and connecting with the program coordinator was really, really helpful.
At one point, I reached out to a classmate just to see if they were having a hard time understanding the language, but she did her undergrad already, so she had kind of experience with the terminology and the language. And I also reached out to the few people in my family who have graduated university just to see how they kind of learned how to get used to the language and go about understanding it.
I was hesitant to reach out for support for a while, mostly because I didn't know exactly what supports would be the most beneficial or where to even go sometimes for those supports, since there's so many different things on campus that could help you, but it's sort of trial and error. And I found that the Writing Center really, really helped me sort of get in line with how to use what I had to make it the most efficient, instead of just feeling like I'm drowning in my work and everything. But I also found that once I started to meet other Indigenous students and they reached out to me and brought me to CAS, that really, really helped.